top markets, you can see the ones in green here. They're the ones that we have nonstop service to. You will see the ones that we don't that are in our top 10, they have some features in common. One, they're destinations. You can't flow through them. And two, they're long ways away. They have what we call a long stage length. So an incredible nonstop mix for a metropolitan statistical area our size, and simply unbelievable. I was telling people just the other day, Washington and New York, they bounce back and forth on which one is our top market. But to New York, just to LaGuardia alone, we have 5 daily flights. Delta has increased the capacity to LaGuardia unbelievably. So if you need to get to New York, the New York metropolitan area, what airport do you want to go to? Newark, LaGuardia, JFK? What time do you want to go? You can get there. Oops. So this is the one that don't pay attention to all the numbers. There's just a couple that I want you to pay attention to, and they're right up in the top bold blue. So the average metropolitan statistical area, our size, has just 1.14 seats per resident out of their market. This is seats on aircraft or air service. Portland has 2.03. We have 2 seats for every resident in the metropolitan statistical area, which is now over 500,000. This is unbelievable. Cities our size in other parts of the country would be just so ecstatic to have the level of service we have right here in Portland. And why do we have that? It's because of the people sitting in this room, partly, and it's also because of all those unique things that Michael mentioned earlier. It is an incredible market. We have business, we have tourism, we have a wonderful town on the seacoast. All those things you saw in the video, they are happening, and they're happening right here in Portland. I like to say it's not by sheer chance that we have Texas Instruments, Fairchild Semiconductor, Unum, IDEX, who you also saw in the video, all around a stone's throw from the airport. It's important. It's part of what is critical mass that is Southern Maine right now, and we're glad that we're a part of it. And you can see it in our numbers. So just to hit our revenue sources, I mentioned that we're entirely self-supporting. Another part of that self-supporting is, and I mention this to many people when I talk with them, we are more like a movie theater than most would think. We do not make money. Most of our money does not come from the ticket. It actually comes from the popcorn and the soda. So in our case specifically, it comes from the rental cars and from the parking. So over 50% of our revenues come from rental car and parking. And actually, we do have our other concessions here today. Our managers from HMS Host and Parodies that do our news and gift and food and beverage are here today. And you can see those are another 18% of non-airline revenues. So it is 70% of our revenues come from something other than the aircraft ticket, the ticket on the airplane. Unbelievable, really. And this is very good for the industry to have this level of non-aeronautical revenue supporting the airport. So, industry update. The industry has changed a lot, and I know I'm speaking to many people in this room. You fully understand this. Bankruptcies, consolidations, mergers. So what we've had, I've been in the industry now, as Michael said, for 20 years, over 20 years. Delta Northwest, then United Continental, Southwest AirTran, and soon US Airways and American. Where does it end? Well, it's ending soon because we're running out of airlines to merge. But Portland has done very well in all of these. And I'll go into it a little bit more. We have actually done well, and it's actually pushed our balance sheet better while making the industry more profitable. I can't say that's the case for the industry as a whole or for the customer, because what's happening? We have higher relative fuel costs now than we've ever had before. And we have consumers that want the lowest possible cost for flying. We really have made air travel a commodity in this country, which is great. More people are flying than ever. This is a wonderful scenario, but it can't be done if the airlines are going bankrupt. So what the airlines, they used to do just what agrarian or farming used to be like. They would just put more seats into the market, and they'd go all out for market share. As soon as you have too much, it's just supply and demand. The price of the tickets dumps, way too much supply in the market. The airlines lose incredible amounts of money. Now they're actually profitable. It's good stuff that way. But what does it mean? We have larger aircraft, fewer flights. So we have the loss of small aircraft, which are inefficient. The routes must prove worthy of investment. Return on investment, it's not just profitable. You can't have a flight. The airline, what you're asking an airline to do is come into my market, come into Portland, come into Maine, and take your $50 million asset or more and commit it to this market at, maybe a loss. Well, guess what? Not even profitability is good enough anymore. Now that aircraft has to return the highest possible return on investment of anywhere else in their network it could be put. So if I have Southwest, that 737, they look at the entire nation and say, where can this aircraft make the most money? And we compete against that. So it's not just profitability on routes, it's maximum profitability on any route they will serve. So it makes our work more pronounced. And yes, the airlines are finally showing a profit. Again, a lot of the numbers on this. The last 5 years in this consolidation, they've been tough all around. It's been a recession, we know that. The industry, in terms of seats available in the market nationwide, the number of seats available on airplane have gone down by 10% or more. But I just wanted to spotlight the airports in the Northeast. And these are competitive. So many of these are competitive airports in Portland. But when Southwest moved capacity out of Manchester and Providence and into Logan, and this is what they're starting to do across their network, you can see what it did to the medium hub airports. Manchester down 45%, Providence down 35%. And Portland isn't immune to these capacity reductions at 7.3% reduction in seats. And you can see Bangor had a tough year in 2007, so they actually showed a modest improvement in the same period of time. But these are incredible. What you're seeing is a removal of the medium-size airports. They're getting homogenized. You're going to have large hubs, large network hubs, and then you're going to have smaller airports. I've said for years now that Manchester will revert right back to the size of Portland, or just slightly larger. It is unbelievable what's happened, and they can't stop it right now. They're still 60% dependent on Southwest, because Southwest still owns 60% of the market share. And no airport director can go down into the basement and make more seats on an aircraft. Even though you may be selling, your flights may be full, you need an airline to provide those seats, so you have to work with the airlines. So here's Portland. We're actually down in that same period of time, the 5 years from 2007 through 2008 was our busiest year. We're actually off 5% in all those times. So we've done much better than the national average. And we've also, as a community, and I've had the support of the city and all of our council, but we invested in this 5-year period, we doubled down on the Portland International Jetport. We invested $162 million in infrastructure in the time when we're in the middle of a recession, and actually employment volumes are modestly declining. But I can tell you it was the right investment. It was a prudent investment, and we likely would not have Southwest Airlines here today if not for that investment, because they are not going to put their aircraft in a market that they can't be efficient. And without the terminal expansion, we could not be efficient. So it is a great story, and we have the infrastructure in place for future success. I mentioned market share. Our market share is very balanced. We have no one carrier that owns the entire market. If you look at 2012 market share, yes, we've reduced the number of airlines, but each pie, there's no piece of the pie that's less than 10%, and no piece of the pie that's more than 28%. So you can see US Airways is our largest carrier, but they're nip and tuck with the merged Delta Northwest. That's what I was saying. These mergers have not been bad for the Portland Jetport, because we still have a balanced market share. And really what happened, we had independents come. We had these low-cost carriers like JetBlue, like AirTran, now Southwest, come into the market and reset our program. And that caused, if I were to back up here, that causes the rise in employment you see in 2007 and in 2008, which we've essentially held. And in the future, I have another one that I'll show you in the future, looks good for Portland as this economy recovers. So lastly on this, I want to show seasonality. We do have a huge seasonal market. Everybody in this room knows that. We do twice as many passengers in July and August as we do in January. But our season is getting flatter. The flatter we can make this curve with all of your help, the better it is for me to go out and market for more air service, because it makes it easier for them to schedule and put more aircraft into the market. But I can tell you what amazes us is that the shoulder keeps getting better. The September, the Octobers, those months keep looking better. And that's important. The longer we can get that shoulder season, the better. And the 1 month that we have that's off is January. So what's next for the Jetport? We're not doing another $162 million in infrastructure, but what we are doing is improving the product now that we have that big infrastructure improvement program out of the way. And how are we going to do that? How are we going to capture your essential vote by buying a ticket? We're going to do it through customer service and building an airport brand. So customer service at an airport, I'd like to say that everybody that you would interact with works directly for me. Guess what? They don't. In a typical day in the summer, we have 12,000 passengers come through the airport on 88 flights. We have 7,000 bags that are transported. We have 650 transactions and $163,000 in rental car sales. Interestingly enough, we gross $26 million annually in rental car sales alone out of the Portland Jetport. It's a huge number, and it mostly occurs in the summer, actually. We do 1,050 news and gift transactions on a typical day. We do 1,900 food and beverage transactions, and Joe will like this because I asked him just a couple weeks ago about this one. We still sell the most draft shipyard beer of any other single entity in the world. So anybody involved with shipyard, and again, it's a stressful experience. So you have an experience here that's not great. People really don't want to be in the airport. They want to be at their destination. So yes, they probably drink a lot of beer at the time. But more importantly, there's 1,000 employees, and I just put a smattering of the logos on the bottom of the sheet. There's 1,000 employees. Employees that work directly for me are 45. Employees that work for the airport, it's nearly 1,000. So I control a very narrow part of your experience. So how can we make sure that you have a good experience, even though I can't? We have to work together with our stakeholders, with our other business entities, and the way I'm going to do that moving forward is build a shared vision. So we want and we will be the airport of choice for Maine. I have to tell you right now that we are not. The airport of choice for Maine, just slightly, it's just by a small percentage, but is Boston Logan, is the airport of choice for Maine. Boo, you can say boo, it's okay. But we will be, and we'll do it by being the best. And the best in a few things here. First, we're going to define the customer. I have a lot of people that I could call customers, but when it comes right down to it, all of the stakeholders could be a customer, but when it comes right down to it, the only customer that any one of those 1,000 employees we really have to keep on our focus is the passenger, is you when you're flying in out of Portland. Define our product. I mean, there's a lot of things that we do and we make money on non-aeronautical revenues, but really all we sell is transportation to and from Portland, Maine. We sell a destination, we sell a geography. That's you know, we don't sell an airport experience, really. We just sell a way to get to the national aviation infrastructure. And we have to do that better than our competitors. So how are we going to do it? We're going to build an airport brand, be the most convenient. We already have a leg up. We're an hour and a half to 2 hours closer than our competitors. We need to be affordable, and you can see on the sheets we pass out that we are against our fair comparisons. And we also want to have a sense of place, because we do sell Portland, Maine, and the entire state of Maine, actually. So we have to have that sense of place in our building and in our facilities. And that means not just having the generic Burger King, but also having the Linda Bean, the Cool as a Moose restaurants that you saw, Cool as a Moose store that you saw in the video. It needs to speak to Maine, because that's why people are here. And then the last part, and I'll show a few of these, there's a huge number of key performance indicators, but we need to measure and track our performance and be best in class. We need to be best in class because you have alternatives. You don't have to fly Portland. So the terminal expansion is part of that Jetport brand. Many of you know about this. We touched upon it in the video, so I'll move along here. I do want to reiterate it was only the second terminal in the country to get LEED Gold certification. And it gave us the improvements for efficiency and other that we sorely needed in the terminal building. And again, I can tell you Southwest wouldn't be here if not for the improvements and the investment we made in this terminal. So again, interior building, I think the architecture has really exceeded expectations, and it really does speak to Maine. And if you haven't flown through, by all means do. The experience in the Jetport brand, you know, in customer service, it's not treat your customers as you want to be treated. It's treat them as they want to be treated. And depending on who you are and where you come from and what you're looking for, you need different things. My older grandfather coming through the airport doesn't need all the technology, doesn't need the free Wi-Fi. But I'm sure my son will be rebooking his flight when he's old enough, obviously, although he's pretty good at the iPad already. Will be in the concourse needing that free Wi-Fi. When they see the weather patterns change on the map, they'll be rebooking to get around the weather patterns. And they don't need to go meet a customer service agent at the ticketing counter. They can go right to the kiosks. I mean, it's changing, but you have to provide the service that's needed for the individual. And I also showed the Thanks Again program there. That's a way of branding us and getting frequent flyer miles for airports as opposed to airlines. Terminal expansion. We're now working on something called the Kids Playport, and we're using a local Maine brand that many of you have seen. It's Kids Crooked House, but we won't have the Kids Crooked House. We'll have the Kids Crooked Air Traffic Control Tower and the Kids Crooked Airport Terminal Building. So this is coming soon, right near the exit to the boarding concourse. So sustainability, we are the only airport east of the Mississippi that can fully process our aircraft de-icing fluid. From the effluent that ends up on the ground to a 99.2% pure that can be resold and sold on the secondary market for propylene glycol. Again, as a terminal expansion, the sustainability part of the brand, geothermal system, saves 50,000 gallons of fuel oil a year, heats and cools the building. And then last, KPI, this is one that many have hit firsthand. It's late, you had an irregular operation, your flight comes in at 1 a.m., your bag was taking way too long to get to the baggage claim at the Portland Jetport. We got it, we heard you, and how do we do it? I don't physically, nor do my employees physically move the bags. They're in the custody of the airline. But the way we make it happen now is that now the best performing ground crew gets the most preferred parking at the end of the month, each month. And the numbers have dropped dramatically. This is just taken from last Thursday, which Thursdays are one of our busiest days. The average for the airport on inbound baggage was 15 minutes. So, and I show Southwest there, they don't charge for baggage. So they got killed on the last metric only because their crew used to do AirTran that nobody checked bags. So they always used to win the free parking. Now they're back in the mix and they're not winning. So with that, last part is affordability. And we are affordable. $18, this is one-way fares, so if you double it, you get the round-trip fares. On domestic, we're only $18 more expensive on a round-trip fare. We're actually cheaper when you look at overall international, and when you combine the two, we're actually $44 cheaper than on the combined domestic and international on a round-trip fare. So last, and this is the final one, and I know this is a lot of data, but I said that an airport director could not manufacture seats on an aircraft. Well, and I told you we're down 5%, but all the work, getting Southwest, working with Delta, we already know what they're selling in the market. For July 2013, we are showing a 3.7% increase in seats out of the market for the coming July. So with that, thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Good morning, Paul. Jerry Ainger and Associates. You touched at the beginning of your presentation on U.S. Airways and American. But before I get to my question, this is a business community. I've been a longtime member of the Chamber of Commerce and worked with you in the airport and your crew out there for well over 20 years. And I'd like to say thank you for taking the business community to heart in this town because you've done a crackerjack job.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry.
Now my question is, you talked about American Airlines and U.S. Airways, and U.S. Airways is our biggest by seats on your graph. How is the proposed and upcoming merger between American and U.S. Airways going to affect our Jetport?
Yeah, thank you, Jerry. It's the proposed merger of U.S. Airways and American actually helps us in many ways, and I'm actually very positive on the overall merger. It will potentially put pressure on the number of slots. Many may have heard the Department of Justice, and they're looking that they may have to give up slots into Washington Reagan. That's a negative for Portland. but the overall merger gets us an alliance. There's 3 major alliances: the One World, the Sky Team, and the Star Alliance. Currently, we do not have One World because that's an American alliance, and we don't have American. So there's a huge benefit here to have the U.S. Airways and American. It will go under the American title. We'll get the One World Alliance, and we will have a significantly larger network and the ability to have more capacity potentially to Chicago. So again, it's just in short, I see the networks being very favorable, and it will improve the overall level of service to Portland with the merger. But some smaller airports, and if you have issues with slots into Washington Reagan, that could be an issue for a smaller airport into DC, but not for Portland. I think in Portland, the overall merger will be very positive.
Hi. Sorry, Ken Blaschke, Head Invest. Could you talk a little bit, you mentioned Southwest has 60% share of Manchester, and Southwest and JetBlue have 24% of your market share. How do you see that growing over the next 5 to 10 years, and how do you think that'll affect the Portland market?
I think Southwest, there'll be, just like you're seeing, first, Southwest increased our capacity to Baltimore significantly. People came to me and they said, oh, all you have are the same 3 AirTran flights to Baltimore. The difference is the aircraft to Baltimore was a 717. It was a Boeing 717, which only had 117 seats. The new 737s on Southwest have over 140 seats. So it was instantly a 22% increase in the seats we have to Baltimore.